What is going on, guys? I am Consumer Tech Review, and today we're going to be doing a review of the IROK FE87. If at any point during the video you want to check out this exact same keyboard, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's jump into it, starting it off with what's in the box. All right, now this comes in a cardboard box with IROK branding on it. Inside, after you open it up, you have the keyboard wrapped in PE foam. You can also use that for modding, which is pretty sick. Then inside of that, you get the keyboard itself. And under the keyboard itself, you have a manual. Then you also get a rubber-coated USB Type-C cable. Pretty standard stuff. All great stuff here. All right, before we get too much more into the video, I do want to say, disclaimer, this is sponsored by IROK. However, they do not have any control over what I say or even the things that I go over in the video. They only paid and sponsored the channel to have a spot, basically for me just to review it. So all of these are my honest opinions, not paid to say anything, and it's absolutely just the same as any other review I do. They're just paying for the spot. So thank you to IROK for sponsoring this video, making sure these high quality videos continue to come out. But with that, let's move on to the form factor and build quality. All right, now this is a TKL form factor. It has nice rounded edges, which look cool. The bottom case has a textured feel, kind of like a sandpapery feel, which is nice to see because that's, you know, typically you're seeing kind of just the same kind of stuff. So that's cool that it has a little texture on the bottom. It is a nice rigid plastic bottom shell. And then on top, the rigidity of the case is literally just that bottom case with then a sit on top, a thick metal plate, which is really nice to see at this price point. And then on top of that, this is the really big thing and something that I personally absolutely love. You guys know this. It has a magnetic removable skirt, which is a big deal. This is so amazing if you do want to mod it, because all you have to do is pop that magnetic skirt off, spray paint it any color you want, and put it right back on. There's no need to spray paint any of the rest of the case, because when it's sitting on your desk, that is the color that you're only gonna see. That's such a massive pro. Now, also on the bottom, so going back to the bottom, we have dual stage risers, which is something that we previously only saw on higher end keyboards. So it's nice to see it here on a much less expensive keyboard. But let's talk mounting style and dampening. Well, we got a few things going on here. Firstly, this is tray mounted. We expect that. So you got a bunch of screws in the top, although the case isn't too hard if you want to put some dampening in it, which we might actually do at the end of the video, so stick around for that. We might actually do some modding. Now, as for dampening, there is none. None between the plate and the PCB, and none in the case. However, as you'll see throughout this video, this keyboard is like a Royal Kludge keyboard in the way that it's really designed to be modded. But as we've saw with the keyboard industry, Royal Kludge and companies like Red Dragon, where they used to be really budget and competitive, at this point have gotten such high in price, or maybe not high in price, but they've stayed at those higher prices, whereas competition like this keyboard, like IROK, and some other keyboard companies have, well, given the same kind of stuff and more. As you'll see in the rest of this review, they're giving more than companies like Red Dragon and Royal Kludge at much lower price points, which is why these are much better picks over those two companies at this point. Okay, so no dampening here, but one of the cool things we do have is when you open this case up, you'll find this has a daughter board. That's also something you're never gonna find on a Red Dragon keyboard. This is awesome for modding during the whole modding process. This just makes it a little bit easier and more enjoyable. Also, the daughter board is not like one of those super cheap ones. If you have experience with daughter boards, some of them are just terribly cheap. This one's nice. It's screwed down and it's got a nice thick cable, which is great. All right, now let's talk keycaps. Now, we all know this doesn't matter too much, but if you are one of those people who might want to buy this keyboard and then kind of save up until you're ready to mod this or mod it in stages, this may be important because you may be sticking with the totally stock board for a while. So let's talk about it. Keycaps, they're OEM. As far as the material, they're ABS. Now the consistency is pretty good. It's pretty much what you'd expect here. Yes, some lettering is more bold and less bold than others, but that's pretty much to be expected. The important thing here is how is the shine through, and it's actually really good. There's no dim spots or any weirdness. It's not like crystally, like some of them are a little weird. This one's really good. It shines brightly through it, and there's no dim spots. I mean, what more could you ask for in a keyboard that costs this much? Now, they overall definitely feel budget, as they are fairly thin, but they definitely are a step above something like Royal Kludge. And lastly, talking a little bit about the thickness again, these are thinner, but they don't have as much of that like super tinny, like crispy, terrible sound of budget keycaps that you would see, again, on like a Royal Kludge keyboard. So if you are gonna be using this for a bit until you're gonna be modding it, these keycaps are probably going to do a lot better than a lot of the competition here. Although again, remember, we're not even comparing these to custom keycaps, which is something that you really want to put on this. But again, I think at this point during the review, absolutely, we're gonna mod it at the end of the video, so definitely stick around. We'll do a little bit of a montage and a quick mod doing the whole thing. All right, but let's talk switches and hot swappability. This is important. So you have a choice between red or brown switches, and you can get this keyboard in either white or black, although with that magnetic skirt, and if you're gonna paint it, it doesn't really matter which one you get. I have the reds, and they're similar quality to like how Temu's would be. So they are a low quality switch, which again, we'd expect. Now, these do differ a little bit, and it again is better in stock form than most of the competition because you actually don't have a full lube job, but you have quite a bit of lube on the leaf and the legs of the stem. So this is actually significantly better than Temu switches that are just stock. Yes, they're still scratchy, but they definitely feel smoother than your typical Temu switch. So that is definitely an upgrade. But again, the biggest upgrade here is upgrading to custom switches. And let's talk about that. Fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now this is still north facing, but again, think about the price point here. Now, one last thing to talk about with the switches themselves is there's no spring ping, which is actually like kind of a pretty big issue with like Temu's. Most of like the Royal Kludges and the Red Dragon keyboards have spring ping, and this doesn't have spring ping at all, which is really, really cool. It's also quite important with a keyboard that doesn't have any dampening, because a lot of times if you guys have any experience with budget keyboards, you'll know when there's spring ping and there's no dampening, it's very echoey and it doesn't sound great. This one doesn't have that problem, which is great. But the fact that you can get a TKL this cheap and have full hot swappability plus that magnetic skirt, this is just amazing. We're in a great point in time for first time modders or someone that just wants another keyboard to mod. We're at a great point in time as far as value. All right, but let's talk the stabilizers. This is important. You guys know this either makes or breaks a keyboard, in my opinion, a lot of the times. Now first, these are plate mounted as you'd expect. And big pro, they don't need to be clipped. So a lot of more budget, old school style plate mounted stabilizers will have these little springs on the bottom. You'll have to clip those off if you want the best possible sound. These are manufactured already with that flat bottom, which is great. The other really great thing is these are quite tight in the board, something that I really wasn't expecting and something that you don't always get, again, with Royal Kludge and Red Dragon. Although they do have good stabilizers that can be modded, well, these are already pretty dang good. They're quite tight, and the big thing is the factory lube and grease job. How is it? It's really good. Now, my spacebar was pretty much perfect. The backspace key and the left shift key had a little bit of a tick in some areas, although it wasn't like that classic tick. It was a little bit different. Now, the feeling is not my absolute favorite, but I think that would come from doing a total retune of these. But this is the big thing. If you're a first-time modder and you don't want to do anything to your stabilizers, because honestly, if we're being honest, doing the stabilizers and tuning them is probably the most difficult thing as a beginner. I mean, that was the thing that I know for me was the most difficult thing to learn and to do, and it was definitely the scariest thing. Lubing switches and everything, not a big deal, especially in this day and age when we have so many factory lube switches that are available, but the stabilizers, something you really can't get around. And so for the average new modder, or for someone doing only your first, second, or third build, and you're still keeping it budget, you probably won't have to tune the stabilizers. You can just take them out, do all your stuff, put them back in, and you'll be good to go. And in fact, to kind of prove that point and to push that point a little bit more, when we do, at the end of the video, when we do a full mod of this, I'm not gonna do anything to the stabilizers. I'm gonna pull them out, and I'm gonna put them right back in their stock form. We'll see how it sounds. I think it's gonna be quite good though. All right, so with that, let's talk typing, sound, and feel. Now, as for the sound, when you compare to other stock keyboards in this price range, it doesn't have a terrible sound at all. Now, again, this is quite hollow, so it does have that hollowy sound, but there's no spring ping, which is great. And the acoustics of the stabilizers are deeper than you would expect, considering the keycaps and considering it's totally hollow. So these are the things that are small changes when compared to other budget keyboards. Like if you put 20 budget keyboards together, they're all gonna sound minimally different. But once you start modding, that's when these small changes, really, that is the case differences, and how it's built, those are the real differences, the DNA of your keyboard. That's when once you mod it, it's gonna sound much different. Now, as for the feel, obviously this is a very stiff board. This is not a gasket mount, so it's tray mounted. Now the feel from the stock red switches is better than Alutemu switches, and it's quite a bit better than Alutemu switches. But again, the real thing here is put some custom switches in there. All right, but next let's move into the RGB. How is it? And it's typically in this category, it's a hit or miss. It's either terrible or it's really good. This is really good. It's very bright. Even in a fully lit room, you're going to have perky lighting that's shining through. If you're deciding to go with shine through keycaps, totally fine, you can do it. And in a bright room like the one I'm in now, it's totally fine. You can still have that shine through, and in a dark room, it glows up very nicely. The other thing I do and don't like talking about RGB or just lighting in general is they have this, obviously these 3 little lights for like your caps lock and everything to kind of show you what's on or off. Pretty typical. But when that skirt is off, it's actually a bar that fully lights up. With the skirt on, it's only little holes. But the crazy thing is that bar looks really good. Like, it makes the keyboard look a lot more like expensive. I wish they would have put that in that top skirt. That would have been really cool. I think the bar is much cooler than just the dots, but again, not a big deal. And if you did want to just paint over those to kind of delete them, you can definitely do that as well. Now, the colors are bright. You have a lot of vibrancy here. It just displays the colors well. You can also change a bunch of different modes. You can change the speed of the modes. You can change the brightness, or just turn the RGB off completely. Now, the only con here is that you can't change the static modes of the colors. So you can have a static like RGB, but to change the different colors of that static mode, you do have to get their software, which is kind of a con depending on if you're an RGB person or not, but we're probably not gonna be put shine through keycaps on here for my build. So if you were kind of going for more of an RGB build, you would probably wanna go get that software, but not a big deal. All right, let's talk connectivity. This uses a USB Type-C on the middle right side. And the only con here really is obviously detachable USB-C at this price point is great, but the only con here is it's fairly recessed. So if you have a bigger, fatter end of like a custom coiled cable, it might not fit into it in stock form. Now, again, I've showed this before on the channel. That's not really a big deal, and especially on a plastic keyboard like this, not a big deal. You take a sharp knife, or you take some high grit sandpaper or a file, and you just file that plastic down. It's really not that big of a deal, and that pretty easily remedies fitting in thicker cables. So not a huge deal at all. Also, if you are modding this thing, and you can just take the daughter board right out and kind of get in there a little bit more if you want to. So overall, not hard, but in stock form, definitely something to think about. All right, but let's talk price and value before we get into it and start modding the heck out of this thing. Now, currently, right now, this is priced at $35.99. That's with red or brown switches in black or white. So you got 4 different options. And this is fantastic considering everything this has, especially that skirt, which is a really big pro for me, and the well-tuned stabilizers. If you want to mod a TKL, this is a great option. In stock form, it's actually better than a lot of other sub $40 and $50 keyboards, especially because of those stock tuned stabilizers. Now, compared to something like the Tecware Phantom, which is definitely more expensive, obviously that keyboard has more dampening and slightly better tuned stabilizers, but you cannot mod it even close to what you can mod this one in. However, since we've talked so much about modding it, let's get to it. I'm gonna do a quick mod. We're gonna do kind of a montage vlog style and see how this thing is. Let's go do it. All right, guys, now that the review is out of the way, firstly, what we're gonna do, pop the skirt off. Like we talked about, the first thing we're gonna do to mod this, let's spray paint it. Let's do it right now. This is the color we're painting it, and we're gonna use this 400 grit sandpaper and quickly just sand this. Now I'm just gonna be doing this fast, but you guys can take your time and wet sand it. That's the best possible way to do this. Scratch the top off, get those edges as well. Also, let's make sure to pop this little piece off. Get a little butter knife or something, pop that off so we don't paint that. All right, we popped this piece out. I think we broke it a little bit. But it should be okay. I think those little tabs broke off, so I don't know if this is actually supposed to be taken out, but we did take it out, and it'll be fine. All right, with that done, put it under the sink, dry her off, then she's ready to paint. All right, guys, now because it's raining outside, we're doing it in the future studio that's still being under construction. Take this, we're gonna set this right on some old drywall, get your paint out, shake it up a little bit. Do this in a well-ventilated area. We're just gonna leave after we do it. And then, just start putting it on. Oh, this is gonna look great. All right, now while that dries, we're gonna mod the rest of it, and then when it dries, we're gonna slap it right back on. All right, first things first, we got our switches. These are the switches we're using. These are the Ajaz Dice Fruit Peach switch. These are hand lubed, but you can get some pre-lubed factory switches. And then we got our modding box, just all the things, all the tools. We're not gonna need all of these. I just have them allocated all in one spot. All right, first things first, let's pop all those keycaps off. Literally just gonna do this like this. This is the easiest way to take a bunch of keycaps off. Pro tip, don't do this if you wanna not mess your switches up, but I don't care. All right, guys, once we have all of those out, oh, one last key, and we're gonna take the switches out. All right, guys, with all the switches out now, take the end of this, push those pins in, and then we're just gonna pop all these out. Now, remember, like I said in the review, we're keeping these. We're not even gonna do anything to them. I'm gonna open the original box out, just to not get my desk dirty, and I'm gonna set all of the stabilizers on there. We're not doing anything to them. They're just gonna stay there. All right, we're gonna need a little screwdriver. We got some screws to take off on the top, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, now, we got the plate. Here is the little diffuser that goes right there. We definitely want to keep that. Let's take the PCB out, and we're gonna detach it back here super easily. Jimmy that out. Case with the daughter board. That's sweet. All right, let's get to modding. And the first thing that we're gonna do is we gotta get some dampening. Now I have a box that's kind of full of dampening. I think it's right here. Ooh, yes, I like this dampening. All right. This is some basic EVA foam. We're just gonna use this today. It's super basic, it's incredibly easy to work with, and well, that's kind of what the point of today is. It's super easy to mod this thing, and I have a feeling it's gonna sound really good. All right, and this is the mat so I don't cut my desk. We're gonna lay this down here. We're gonna do a little bit of tracing out. So we're gonna set this down on there, and then we're gonna butt this up against this edge, make that straight. It's gonna end right here. That fits in there quite nicely. All right, we're gonna see if we can use the hole punch. It's kind of let us down in the past, but we'll try it today. Actually, look at that. That's why I love EVA foam. It literally just goes right through. We're just gonna poke them right through. Super easy. Then for this, we're gonna have a cable coming out about right there. So we're gonna take the knife, punch a little hole, or a little slit through, feed the cable up through there. Guys, I can't tell you how easy it is to work with EVA foam. This is why I love it. It's not the craziest amount of dampening in the world, but honestly, it's gonna be a massive change from what it was, and that's good enough for me. Guys, come on, look at how easy that is. All right, let's set this aside. We got the dampening in there. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use the PE foam that's in the box. It's right here. So easy. All right, this is gonna add some sound, some character to the board. I love doing this on cheaper boards. PE foam just, well, it gives the board character. So set it down on top, you'll be able to see through. The first thing that we're gonna do is cut out where the stabilizers sit in. So first we're doing the space bar. All right, and the same thing here. Now guys, you see, even if you don't have an X-Acto knife or the right tools, you don't need them. You could have done all of this with a pair of nice scissors or even bad scissors. You don't even need nice scissors here. All right, now with all of those lining up nicely, you can see there, lined up all nicely. We're gonna take our X-Acto knife, we're gonna go around the edge, just cut along the backside of the metal plate, and there we go, guys, it's all cut out. So we're gonna take this, flip it around to the front now, line that up. I'm gonna flip this around, open your switches. I like to do corners first, or the stabilizers first, which seems like a better idea in this situation. There we go, that one's in. All right, so with a lot of those in, we're gonna have to take those stabilizers back out. I don't know what I'm thinking today. We're just gonna put some edge pieces in, just to maintain that distance. Take your stabilizers, and we're going to insert them back in. All right, then before we put everything else in, we're gonna grab the case here. And yes, you're thinking, okay, well, you didn't cut out any of the holes for the PE foam. PE foam's so brittle, not brittle, but it's just super easy to work through that we can just screw right through it. So firstly, let's reconnect the cable right here. Just gonna stick that in there and pull it in place. There we go, now it's fully in. Let's flip this around, set it down in here. Looks like we gotta cut a little bit more of that PE foam away, because remember, this one sits into the plate. All right, then grab your screwdriver and we're gonna screw all these back down. All right guys, and the last screw, good to go. Now we just have to pray that 2 layers of PE foam was not too much. Let's see. All right, so now we're gonna press all these in. All right guys, now we got all the switches in there. Now it's keycap time. These are some GMK clones, they're knockoffs, and they're like 30 bucks. So they're not even really compared to GMKs because, well, they're 30 bucks. This is how they look. The colorway's awesome. Yeah, they have issues. They're not like competitors to GMK, obviously, but they look great. And that's what we're matching our color to. This kind of color right here, this like teal, blue, green. I mean, it just looks, it's gonna look so good, I think. All right, so let's put them on. We don't have to wait because the skirt goes right over everything. And there we go. Okay, now right now, this actually looks ridiculous because the white does not match the rest of this, but, well, let's go see if that skirt is dry. And then we pop it on, guys, and that's literally it. That was easy. All right, guys, I'm gonna check it. I'll be right back. Hopefully it's not still wet. Now, if I was doing this legitimately, I'd probably let it dry a little bit more, but it's dry enough. Let's go do it. All right, and the moment of truth. Let's see how it looks. Okay, come on. It's a little tight because of the paint. Guys, oh my God. Are you kidding me right now? $35.99? That is how much this keyboard costs. Does it look like that? Come on, guys. All right, let's plug it in. All right, guys, come over here. We're gonna plug this in. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Look at how good this thing looks. We're gonna get a slight little sound test. Ooh. No one's gonna think that that's $34.99. Now, obviously, it's not $34.99 after that, but it's well under $100. And it looks like this. I mean, that looks so good. I love that I used the accent color.
as the whole case. I mean, it just looks great. All right, that's how quickly we can mod it. We didn't even do a tape mod. We could have done a silicone mold in the case, which is probably the best thing I think for this. That would make this crazy. And also a tape mod would definitely take this places for sure. But guys, come on, listen. Come on, come on. All right, also the stabilizers. I didn't do anything to them. You guys saw, I didn't do anything to them. Let's get a full send test back to back. But if you want to check this exact same keyboard out, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. And I'll also link keycaps, switches, whatever else. Yes, it looks fantastic. This looks fantastic. I literally just sped through this. I think this is one of like the best looking keyboards I've ever modded, and it's just, I just sped through it. Back to back sound test, stock, then modded. See what you guys can do with this thing. Heck yes. Post it on the Reddit if you guys get this and you mod it. I want to see it. All right, this is a Consumer Tech Review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Watch that sound test.